Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. Listen up. WynnBET is now live in all these states, and the excitement of Wynn Las Vegas has finally landed in online sports betting and casino play. From boosted parlays to live in-game offs on every major sport, WynnBET gives you the tools to win. Sign up today for your risk-free $1,000 sports bet. Download the WynnBET app now or visit wynnbet.com to start winning.
You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country, and welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me as per usual is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. Dude, free agency has been wild. I mean, obviously the Broncos bringing in Russell Wilson with the big trade there, DJ Jones, Randy Gregory. They brought in Billy Turner to help shore up the right tackle spot along with Tom Compton there as well. Sounds like Calvin Anderson's going to get a good shot to go at that position there. Obviously, the Tyreek Hill news from the other day, just dropping bombs all over the NFL world, man. Are you keeping up with the whirlwind, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm keeping up with it best I can. Like, there's still a lot happening, and I don't think Denver's done. I think we'll still see a couple moves. I don't think there'll be big, super expensive moves. I think that most of the cap room that they've used or have left, they kind of want to save a little bit. But I don't think that they want to go into the draft needing like 20 plus rookies. I think they want to cut that number down. So seeing a couple guys signing for like minimums or just above minimums, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that. And then doing good as well, because I mean, I just realized today that this is the 10th draft I've covered. For websites, most of them, I mean, every single one I've been working underneath Chad for, 5 or 6, maybe 7 as part of Mile High Huddle. Before that, predominantly Orange. Before that, a place called Pro Football Spot, and then little bit of time before that working with Pro Football Focus. Like, how long I've been doing this? Like, it just hit me as it's been a long time. Doesn't feel like it though. So I'm excited. To talk about Russell Wilson. Excited to, talk about how Denver can still build up this team around him with these plenty of draft picks, even though they don't have a first or missing that early second that they had. Like, it's great to see that they still have plenty of versatility, they have plenty of options they can do, and it's great to talk about.
Yeah, it's actually kind of wild. I was wondering where all that gray hair came from. No, I'm just playing, man. Like 10 years, that's a hell of an accomplishment, man. Like, there's not a lot of people that can say 10 years have been covering the draft, 6, 7, 8 years with Mile High Huddle. I mean, it's been a wild ride being able to follow your work and then to be able to join with you guys over the last 3 years. And you and I have been doing this podcast now for 2.5 years. Like, just to think of how long that we've all been doing this together, and the fact that I've looked up to you as far as a draft analyst for a long time. I mean, I've taken a lot of big lessons from you. You've helped me out and helped me improve and stuff like that. Like, it's just an amazing, and congratulations to you, dude. Like 10 years, that's an amazing accomplishment, and to stay relevant the entire time and doing it. Like, yeah, you're still pretty relevant, dude. Like, come on, man. I know there's a lot of people that really respect your work, and I know that it's just getting started for you as far as a little bit bigger, but you've always been one of the guys that have been the prominent guys that at least I have followed and paid attention to. Now, for me, I've still got a long damn ways to go, but anyways, guys, today we're going to be talking about how the Denver Broncos can continue to build around, obviously, bringing in Russell Wilson. They finally got that quarterback position shorn up. Still a couple of needs on this team. Obviously, slot cornerback, the right tackle, we've got to figure that out. Another nickel defensive back, whether it's a safety or even another cornerback. You've got the center position. What's that going to play out like? Interior defensive line, kick returner, punt returner. How is the wide receiver position going to shake out? There's a lot still that needs to come. We got a lot of questions that need to be answered. And then after that, if we have some time, we're going to talk to see about if Russell Wilson is starting to decline a little bit. There's some hot takes rolling around Broncos country, and especially coming out of Seattle about Russell Wilson being on the decline. But guys, you are watching the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You guys can follow us on Twitter by finding me at Sanderson MHH, and for Erick at Erick Trickel. Also, guys, while you're at it on Twitter, follow at Mile High Huddle, because that's where you're going to get your breaking news and breaking news and analysis on your Denver Broncos, as Erick's trying to point to the right direction of where we're at on the screen here. But anything regarding your Broncos, any film breakdowns, opinion articles, all of our premium draft content, you're going to find it at Mile High Huddle. Facebook supporters go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. That's the podcast account there. You'll see anything regarding the Huddle Up podcast account, that the Dove Valley Deep Divers, building the Broncos, anything, that's where you're going to find it. Guys, subscribe wherever you're watching this. Like every video you guys see, and if you love it, share it, get it in front of as many Broncos fans as possible, because without your guys' support, without our following, our great community here at the Mile High Huddle and Huddle Up podcast, we couldn't do what we do best, which is cover your Denver Broncos. Now, with that, obviously the Broncos have been still relatively busy in free agency. They signed Kawan Williams, formerly of San Francisco, the other day. They just brought in Billy Turner a couple days ago, which is a signing that I'm all right with. It was last night. Okay. So it's been a whirlwind, man. I got a pretty bad phone call before we came on, so pardon me, guys. Lost a family friend, but I'll stick through it with you guys. Anyways, K'Wan Williams the other day, Billy Turner last night, kind of rounding out these holes, but it doesn't actually provide you any answers, because I know Erick is not super huge on Billy Turner. He's just kind of an all right guy. I'm there with him. K'Wan Williams is a guy I really like, but still, I'd like to see some more depth added to these positions. Now, Erick, specifically to the right tackle position in Billy Turner, what were your biggest takeaways from that?
I mean, so I got a lot of heat because I said he's not exactly the guy you want starting at right tackle. But the fact of the matter is neither is Tom Compton and neither is Calvin Anderson. Mm-hmm. They're all fine players, Compton and Turner more so than Anderson. Anderson still has a little ways to grow, and got to see if he can actually work on the right side. His best plays consistently been on the left. Yeah. So it's a fine pickup. I like the pickup. A 1-year deal, $5 million max value. Like, it's a good value for him, for somebody who's as versatile as Turner is, that can play on either side of the line at the guard position, and then also offer up right tackle. I mean, that's a good piece to have at depth at the very least. Yeah. He's going to be part of a competition. And it's funny looking at it, because Billy Turner last year was average in both run blocking and pass blocking. Then you have Tom Compton that was slightly below average as a pass blocker, but he was the second best run blocker at the tackle position last year, behind his teammate in San Francisco. And then you have Calvin Anderson, who's a young growing guy. So it's a nice competition that you have there. They're all on 1-year deals. They all are going to have a chance to go out there and compete for the starting job. And it's nice. And it's great to see. It's just that simple fact of, all right, I mean, they're not the ideal starting guy. And there's nothing wrong with that. Denver, I mean, George Payton, he really raised the floor of the room with that. And that's fine. That's something I actually like. Something I'm growing to like a little bit more. Raising the floor. Because if you raise the floor, then you can go out for those guys that really raise the ceiling and not have to be super concerned on if you miss. Like, oh, we're looking directly at this guy, this right tackle, and at the pick 64, and he goes at pick 34, and you miss on that. You don't have that floor raise. Well, now you do. So I like the pickup. He's got some issues with the speed around the corner, which is one of my more concerning aspects with him coming to the AFC West with some of the pass rushers that we have. But he's fine. I mean, it's no different than Tom Compton. Tom Compton has the same issues with speed around the corner. I think that Billy Turner is much better suited at guard. So I like it. I like the pickup of K'Wan Williams, because Denver really needed somebody to man that nickel position. That was in my opinion, that was the most glaring issue that this team had. And while I still think that they should add another corner or two and another safety, I like the move that they made there. I like what they're doing at edge. Not the biggest fan of what they're doing with Baron Browning, but we'll see how that works out. So it's a lot that I like. Not much that I love, but hey, that's okay, because it's going to be time will tell. Like, there's a lot with this team. I mean, I love that pickup of Russell Wilson, but outside of that, and then also figuring out what they're doing with the draft, and I love how they've set themselves up for the draft.
I was just about to go into that, and thank you for bringing that point up. one of the biggest things, and John Elway tried to do this every single year, and George Paton seems to be doing it in a different way. Where, as Eric kind of mentioned just a second ago, you're raising the floor of the team. Like you're bringing in a lot of these lower level of the roster guys that can compete to bolster the floor of this roster, and then leave you the opportunity to go and, obviously Randy Gregory is not a floor roster guy. Like that's a guy that's going to be a starter. You had to make a move there at the edge position, but they brought in is it J.R. Reed is the son of I forget his name. Is a former wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings back in the 90s. Anyways, the safety position, a special teams guy. Alex Singleton, another guy that plays a lot of special teams at the linebacker position to help bolster that depth just a little bit there. Tom Compton, obviously bringing in Billy Turner. Calvin Anderson back on the 1-year deal. Let those guys compete at the right tackle position. The biggest takeaway, though, for me for that is they're shoring up all of these needs with players that are at least quality, like guys that have the ability to go out there and contribute to a role in some ways and still have the opportunity to go and improve that roster spot. They're not going into the season like with John Elway, for example, signing a guy like Menelik Watson as the guy that is going to be the guy at right tackle, or like a Donald Stevenson. We've got two guys in Compton and Turner, and now obviously with Calvin Anderson that can compete at the right tackle position, and they all have the ability to start and play at a relatively decent level. Would you like to see some more improvement there? Absolutely. But you're not locked into the draft as terms of trying to go and target a guy like a Braxton Jones or Bernard Raymond or a Abraham Lucas, a guy that you might have potentially trade up in the second round because like that's the need on this roster. There's not necessarily a huge need on the roster. You can kind of sit, play it patient, and if you see a guy falling that you can target at one of those positions of need, like the edge depth position, a cornerback, right tackle, maybe even a safety, if you got like a guy like a Daxton Hill or a Jaquan Brisker that might be slipping into the 40s, like there's an opportunity there for the Broncos to kind of remain patient and have bide their time and then let the draft come to them again. And that's something I really like with this Billy Turner signing, because another thing that is questionable to me is the interior offensive line depth. And Billy Turner can actually play 4 positions on the offensive line. He can line up on the right side. He can line up on the left side at both guard and tackle. So you've got some better depth there. Unfortunately for Netani Moody, that might be the ticket for him out of this roster. And I want to address another part of that here in just a little bit as far as drafting another interior offensive lineman, because I do think that that's another need for this team. Like they're just overall solid signings, but they're not anything to like make big splash plays, and they're not something that's going to knock you out of the park.
Yeah, I want to grab this real quick right now, Joey. We do not have anything scheduled, but as soon as we know, we will definitely pass it along, and it's something that I got to get together with Chad to figure out and see if we're going to go with the same structure we did last year or going to go with the structure we were doing before that. So we still got stuff to hammer out. Still have a little bit of time, but it's something that I got to get together with Chad and figure out. And then Travis Weber. Good evening, Lance, Eric, and Scott. Unfortunately, we don't have Scott with us tonight. He has a family thing going on, so he isn't here for tonight. So if we miss things on Facebook and everything like that, we apologize. Scott typically does an excellent job of pulling that up for us, and unfortunately, with us on the stream, we can't actually see it. So we missed that. We apologize, and we thank for everybody who has starred or will star. We will try to catch it, and we'll try to guess the best we can if you guys start or not. But we appreciate your guys' support. Yes, he says, "Nice, my prayers and condolences to you and your friend's family."
Thank you,
Eric. Congratulations. Thank you. As to Wilson and the question on the decline, watching video footage of him working out with Cushenberry and the receivers, who looks great. And if he's on the decline, it's better than what we had. Let Russ cook. Let's ride. I definitely agree, and that's something that we were going to talk about a little bit later on about this decline of Russell Wilson. Because looking at it, I mean, when you watch his tape, I know a lot of people point to the last half of last year after he came back from hurting his finger as to, oh, he's declining. Well, I mean, even after he came back from that, the final 9 games of the season, 5 of them, he still posted over 100%, over 100 on his passer rating. There was 1 game at 99.4. He was 15-2 in those 6 games with his touchdown to interception ratio. Before he got hurt, he was again in the MVP consideration there. 10-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And I think the most telling fact here is that only once during his time with Seattle were the Seattle Seahawks ranked in the top half in total passing attempts. Only once, and they were at 16th that year. And a lot of people think of, oh, he wants to cook, is that, oh, he wants to be the focal point of the offense. I don't think that is. I mean, they had like a 90% running rate during his career on first down. Like 90% of the time they ran on first down. I think he just wants more balance. I think he wants the offense to have a little bit more trust in him, like on first down, to use that as like, okay, yeah, we're going to pass here and let you pick up some yards. So that opens up the door for what we can do on second and third down going forward. I think he wanted a little bit more of that. I don't think it was, he wants a heavy passing offense. Just more balance between the two, a little bit more balance between their run and passing situations in game and down and distance and everything like that. I don't think he's declining. The question is how long before he declines. And with his play style, it might be sooner than later. Just not really sure at the moment. But before we get into that, we have our first part of our conversation. Still some people here. Michael Ronquillo saying, good evening, Lance and Eric of the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Broncos. Thank you, Michael, for constantly joining us. Jeff Noy says Wilson has at least 5 years left. I could see that. I think realistically, before he hits, like, not necessarily hits the cliff, but hits that point, I think 4, 5, maybe 6 years at least.
Well, he already has said in his introductory press conference he wants to play 10 to 12 years. Now, is that realistic? I mean, you're talking, he's 33 now, 10 years, 12 years. You're talking Tom Brady, and that guy's wild. He retired for less than the baseball was locked out in their collective bargaining agreement negotiations, and he came back and decided he wanted to play some more and potentially play another year from the sound of it. Are we going to see something like that again? A Brett Favre or a Tom Brady with Russell Wilson? Probably not. Because quite honestly, as good as Russell Wilson is, there is a lot of tread on the tires because he does like to move around a lot. He doesn't take a lot of unnecessary hits, though, so you could see him maybe extend that career just a little bit, especially if he becomes a little bit more of a refined pocket passer, which – not that there's a lot more refinement, but just more reliant on being a pocket passer, and rather than taking off with his legs, which that could extend his career for another 3 or 4 years after you start to hit that age gap. But that at the same time, like 5, 6, 7 years, if you're getting that with Russell Wilson, with what the Broncos gave up, you maximized or at least opened up a Super Bowl window with him at the quarterback position, and you can't hate it. And then, especially with what we went through the last couple of years. Sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, too, I want to say hey to Stephen Baumgartner for joining us, and also give out a big congratulations again. Congratulations, man. I've been married. I'm about to hit my 4th year anniversary. Yep. Absolutely love it. Wouldn't change anything. Lance here is about to get married, so congratulations on your engagement, man.
Yeah. Congratulations to Stephen, who tagged all of us at Mile High Huddle on Twitter last night. Actually, it was early this morning. Saying that he got engaged last night. So congratulations to Steve, and congratulations to your beautiful fiance. And hopefully you stick around for some more fun times here at the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Want to give some more shout outs here. Jay Kozad, Mike S., Kathy Lund joining in again. Stu McPeak back in the hizzy. What's up, Zeus? It's been a minute since you've been hanging out here on DVDD. It's good to see your face back in there. Paul as well. We got Luke Wright, John Juno over on Facebook. We had a question on Twitch. If I can find that, I'll grab that here in a second. Chase Wellner, Roy Osborne as well. What's up, everybody? Here it is. This is from Tim over on Twitch. I think Peyton is done bringing in talent for right tackle after Billy Turner. I wouldn't be so sure about that. I mean, there's still a possibility that the Broncos could fall in love with a guy in the draft. I know they like Bernard Raymond a lot, so that's something to keep your eyes on there if he starts to slip. Definitely a possibility for Peyton to bring in another body at the right tackle position and just kind of help fill out this roster.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the bringing in Tyler Smith out of Tulsa, my scouting report on him is up at milehighhuddle.com if you guys want to go check it out. Mm-hmm. To get a little bit more insight into what he is and all my full thoughts. But I mean, I think if he's there at 64, I think he's a good option for them to look at, a developmental tackle option. I think that's kind of what they're looking for. I think the addition of Billy Turner with Tom Compton and Calvin Anderson, those guys competing, I think they'll be willing to throw a rookie into it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have to go get that rookie right tackle.
Right.
They can wait a little bit. They can see how the board falls. Maybe Matt Willetts go in the 4th or 5th round. Maybe Kellen Diesch out of Arizona State is an option there. Obena Ease out of TCU with freaking ridiculous length. Maybe he's an option later as a developmental option. They open themselves up to okay, we don't have to go get a right tackle. We can see how the board falls. If one we like falls to us at 64 or falls within range where we don't have to give up a lot to go get him, all right, we'll do that. And I mean, it's the same thing at edge. It's the same thing at corner. And that's one of the things that I like about it. But I think they'll add another tackle. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they add another interior offensive lineman as well.
Yep.
It's just having these, having the options. And then Travis Weber came in, going back to the conversation about Russell Wilson, plus having a running back like Javonte. He hasn't had that good of a running back since Skittles. Don't disagree. And I think that Denver would be smart to add yet another piece, another weapon for that, not just to help Russell Wilson, but to help out Pookie, help him out with the running the ball, giving him a little bit of a break, helping complement that skill set. And they set themselves up in a good position to just go and do that. They didn't spend big on a running back. I think they're still monitoring the running back market, seeing what happens. I think they're still watching Melvin Gordon, though expectations there are still saying, who was the one running back that just got like $6 million on an average per year basis?
Leonard Fournette.
And I think that Melvin Gordon, from what's been going around, is looking for at least that. I think that's a little bit rich, but it's something that they're still monitoring. Yeah. Speaking of running backs, Joey comes in, says, realistically, is it plausible picking a running back at 64? Is there anyone there that would entice you?
So I don't necessarily think that picking a running back at 64 is in the cards for this team. It really does depend on how the rest of free agency plays out. If they can get another edge player like a Jadeveon Clowney would be somebody that I'd be like all aboard bringing in. Marcus Golden as well would be another name that I would like. Guys that are a little bit better in the running game that can stand up at the edge but also slide inside, play some 5 technique. I think that that's a really good way to go. That's a big need for this team. Potentially another safety if they get Kareem Jackson back, which probably not very likely. The cornerback we were just talking about before we went live, the kid from Baltimore, that would be another guy that I would like to bring in as well. But running back at 64 after you traded up for Javonte Williams, I could see it if the right guy fell there, and that right guy is Breece Hall, because he's the best pass protector in this class, a very good receiver out of the backfield. He has home run speed as well. That's a really good pair with Javonte Williams. I just don't see him making it outside of the top 45 picks. Like, this kid's a special player. Kenneth Walker maybe as well, but at 64, like, the guys that are going to be available are not worth it there. I'd still wait to get into like the 4th round, maybe 5th round as well, to go to get that backup running back for Javonte Williams. And also don't sleep on Mike Boone, who I went back and watched again, the big game that he had at Minnesota a couple years ago. I like him. I really do like him. He's twitchy. He's got some long speed to him. Very physical, violent runner. Like, there's an opportunity here for Mike Boone to be the guy. So even round 4 or 5, if you don't really fall in love with a guy, get a late round guy, 6th, 7th round undrafted free agent, somebody that's not going to come in and steal a whole lot of snaps and just kind of fill out the depth of that. 64 though, that's a little rich for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because, I mean, 64 is a guy that you're kind of looking for to be the bell cow back.
Yeah.
And so I'm not looking there. Depending on who's there in the 3rd round, I don't mind looking, because that's that point of like, okay, yeah, we can use you as a compliment. Yeah. And we can find you snaps. And I think the 2 guys that I think could potentially be there, Kyron Williams out of Notre Dame, who his scouting report just went up today, so you guys can go check that out, and James Cook out of Georgia.
That's my
scouting
guy.
report is also up that you guys can go check out at milehighhuddle.com. Both of them are those complimentary guys, good receivers out of the backfield. Kyron Williams is a little bit smaller. He's got some fumble issues and some vision issues, so he's not quite the same, as good of a fit as James Cook is, because the running scheme really relies on the vision. But he can line up as a slot. He can go make be a threat out of the backfield. And despite being small, he's plenty of tough to mix it up as a pass blocker. And real quick, I just want to say hi to Gio, who's back in the house. Gio, it's been a while.
What's up,
Great
dude?
to see you back in here.
Yes, absolutely. What's up, Gio? So going back to pick number 64, Mike jumping in here and dropping a question saying, who is the most realistic pick at 64? Is it a tight end or a right tackle or other? Obviously, being this far out and the changes that occurs in the information we're over right at a month out away from the draft. It's hard to guess that. There's still a lot more that needs to fall. But at this time, tight end, unless it's Trey McBride or Isaiah Likely, I'm not sure that that's going to be the option there. You're probably looking at the 3 key areas of need on this team. probably right tackle, cornerback, or potentially an edge player. And this is actually a quality draft to get an edge player or a tackle at 64. I mean, you've got I don't think Bernard Raymond's an option at 64, but if he falls, then for sure. Trey Smith there, Abraham Lucas is there, Braxton Jones potentially if a team really falls in love with him. But I'm thinking probably later round 3, maybe early day 3 for him. As far as the edge is concerned, you've got Cameron Thomas. There's Nick Medito, probably not at 64, but a handful of guys at the edge position. And then cornerback Roger McCreary is the guy that seems to be falling here lately because of length concerns. We were talking about him in our group chat with Nick Kendall the other day. There's a lot of different options here, but those would be the 3 positions that I would look at.
The issue with tight end is not just positional value, but value to the offense with Russell Wilson at the helm.
Yes.
Tight ends aren't a major importance with him. I don't think Trey McBride will be there. I don't think Isaiah Likely will be there. I think they'll both end up being top 50 picks, honestly. And if they are, I'm not looking to go that way, just because of the positional value and the value within the offense.
Yep.
Right tackle, edge, corner, those are the 3 most valuable positions at that point. And the other aspect with the tight end discussion is this is a really strong class for tight ends.
Yeah.
I'm fine waiting. I'm fine waiting till day 3 because you're still getting a guy who can come in and can contribute. Jeremy Ruckert is an option. Maybe Cade Otton falls a little bit. Jake Ferguson's another option to keep an eye on. Those are guys that are falling a little bit that you guys can keep in, that you can potentially have an impact out of it.
Right.
Michael Ronquillo says, just want Broncos country to know I was dealing with death threat this week. Oof, never good. I've been there.
Yeah.
Doing well right now. Change your cell phone number today. Hey, that's great. Always do what you can to protect yourself. Glad you're safe, and I hope you stay safe, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah, we need your support, man. You're one of the best supporters for the Huddle Up Podcast Network just in general. So please make sure that you are safe. There was something that you had mentioned just a couple of seconds ago before you grab this next comment, because I've been debating on this. I was trying to get Ryan Roberts to come on the show on Wednesday, and unfortunately he had a family issue. He wasn't able to make it. So we're still trying to reschedule that. So guys, please be aware Ryan Roberts is still available and is still going to be able to come on Dove Valley Deep Divers with me. Anyways, I was listening to his podcast the other day, and he was talking about Cole Strange, the interior offensive lineman guard specifically from Chattanooga. And the more that I was listening to him, and the more that I went back and watched the Kentucky game that he had this last year, and dude's dominant. Like, he was so good. It's amazing, these small school guys that are starting to surface, especially at the Senior Bowl where he dominated as well. But Cole Strange is a guy that I am very intrigued by for this Broncos team, even after getting a guy like Billy Turner that can play on the inside, because as a future player, Cole Strange projects as a potential starter at the guard position because he's got great length. He moves very well. His testing at the combine was great. The tape is there, and he's got some versatility. He can play at the center position where he played at the Senior Bowl. But looking to the future, you've got Graham Glasgow in the last year of his deal. Dalton Reiser's going into the last year of his deal. There's a need for a future interior offensive lineman prospect. And even with Quinn Miners, like, you're going to need to have another guard because Netanya Moody just doesn't fit this scheme. He's probably going to be on his way out this season. So Cole Strange, Eric, I want your thoughts on him and his potential fit in this offense because I really like this kid a lot.
I like him. I like him quite a bit. At first, when I first watched him, I thought that maybe center is his future. Then he went to the Senior Bowl and he just handled himself exceptionally there. Went back, was able to actually find more tape on him because Chattanooga is not always the easiest to find. And yeah, I think he can live at guard. He's an interior offensive lineman, center or guard, depending on it. I think he's got the IQ to move inside. And honestly, like, him and Quinn Miners could be a great duo at the guard position.
Yes, they can.
They both move well for their size. They're both have plenty of strength. They're good athletes as well. So I wouldn't mind it. It's just a matter of where. Not sure I would go there in the 3rd round. I think Quinn Miners was definitely a better prospect than Cole Strange.
Yep.
But I think Denver's sitting with pick 115 and 116. One of those picks, I wouldn't mind it.
I was just about to say 116 is 115, 116 is the premium area that, like, if Cole Strange is there, I would be all about that.
Rob Wogman came in and says Callahan or Jackson coming back. Denver's still linked with Callahan, even though they brought Quan Williams. I I don't know if the cost will match up there, so that's something to keep an eye on. And then Kareem Jackson, they seem to be monitoring that market. Safeties always tend to take a little bit extra time before it really gets going. Typically, really historically, it's about the first week of April that the safeties really start going. Something to keep an eye on. Then we had there's another comment here that I want to grab. Black Knight. We're looking at getting on the show here in the next couple weeks. It says, I have a bold prediction. I think the Broncos are going to trade up into the first. What pick? He doesn't know. What do you think?
We kind of addressed this last week, but it is a bold take, hot take. I guess not really hot take, and it would depend on the cost, because I don't think that Denver has enough draft capital in the next first two rounds, so this year or next year, to be able to make that move. Even with 2 third-round picks and then 2 fourth-round picks, you're probably not going to see that happen. That's too much draft capital to give up to get into the back end of the first round. Now, I will say with a caveat here, there's one player that I would be willing to do that with in this particular draft class, just because I think that you are elevating the floor enough at the right tackle position, but you're also getting a guy that has Pro Bowl potential, maybe even all pro potential. And that's Trevor Penning. If Trevor Penning does fall to the tail end of the first round, that would be a guy that I'd be willing to package some picks from this year and maybe even next year to move up and go get. The problem is, though, you're talking 64, 75, a second next year that you don't have, or a third. So let's see, 64, you're talking 64, 75, 115 plus a third next year to be able to get to 32. There's a long ways to go. It's hard to get into the first round from where the Broncos are at.
Yeah, I mean, you typically don't see go from 64 to 32. It'll be interesting. I think there's a couple players that I don't know if they'll look into the first, but I think they could look into the second. But here's another thing with that, with potentially moving up, is instead of picks, using a player.
Yeah. And
a very specific player that's been plenty of rumors going around even now about him potentially being traded. And I know that many in Broncos country, many in the chat aren't going to like it.
Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy's name has been floating around on the rumor market there for quite a while now. They want to see certain things. There's a big question as to how he actually fits with Russell Wilson, who doesn't historically work the middle of the field. And the best route from Jerry Jeudy is those in routes, the daggers, things like that. Mm-hmm. So there's a concern there. Not saying he gets traded, just saying that there's a little bit of rumors there, and maybe that's a time that we could actually see him get moved.
Yeah.
As for moving up besides Trevor Penning, Boya Mafi is one that I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, that's another good one. We kind of had a discussion about that the other night in our group chat, and I want to go back to the comment that I put into there. And you may think that this is ridiculous, Eric. So please, if I'm in the wrong here, come back at me, which you always will, and I know you will. But with Boye Mafe, the usage that they had at Minnesota it was so different, because they did line him up on the edge. They used him to drop back into coverage, use him off the ball a little bit. It's just hard for me to try to find a role in this defense right now for him, because with Randy Gregory, who did a lot of that in Dallas, and can play potentially on the inside a little bit. You've also got Bradley Chubb, who can slide down on the inside. So that might be the role there, is to play Chubb at like a 5 technique and then Mafe at a 9, to bring that together there. But with Baron Browning as well as a guy that they're potentially going to be moving around, where does he slot in on this defense? It's such a very weird discussion. And maybe if you're thinking of potentially moving on from Bradley Chubb and making him that full-time edge position, then I could see that as a futures move. But I don't know where you put him on this defense. And I love Boye Mafe. Don't get me wrong. That's one of my favorite players in this class. I have a solid first-round grade. He's my 19th overall prospect right now. I think that there's definitely a role for him. I just don't know in this year at this particular time if that's something that I'd be willing to do, because I don't know how he fits in for this season particularly.
I mean, it's not hard. I mean, he's your number 3 edge rusher. I mean, you can slide him or Chubb down as your 5 tech.
Right.
It's not hard. It's not hard to get him to fit into it. He's got good versatility for it. I don't like the way that Minnesota used him all the time.
Me neither.
But yeah, I mean, that's what he is. He's your number 3 edge rusher. He gives you this, in a way, a hybrid defensive line edge guy, not typically what you want. because, I mean, he's not this 280 pounds that you typically want for that, 270 or so. But, I mean, that's what he can do. I mean, he's got enough strength to hold up there. I wish that he was a little bit stronger at the point of attack against the run.
Yeah.
But, hey, you just got DJ Jones to help with that. And you have Bradley Chubb behind him. Like, so that's where you fit him in at. Is using him in that hybrid-ish role, which there's plenty of snaps there for it when you're going to be playing, I'm assuming here, over 80% of your snaps in nickel and dime packages.
Right.
Maybe closer to 90. Like, it's very easy to slide Mafe into this defense.
So the one thing that I would push back on that a little bit is that if you're using a premium pick, like right now where this roster is built, and yes, they do need to upgrade that edge position, the third edge rusher for sure. I don't disagree with that. It's just, if you're going to use a premium pick on a player that's going to be a third guy, like go back to Jerry Jeudy here. You've got two big contracts to Cortland Sutton. You got and Tim Patrick. Jerry Jeudy used the
also have
15th
Bradley
overall
Chubb
pick.
on the final year of his deal.
That's a very good point, and I
so
yes.
the thing with this is that it's not you're looking at it as just a third rusher, but really the best way to look at it, he's like 2B. Like,
and that's
it's not number 3. He's 2B with Bradley Chubb as 2A because you can rotate them down. I mean, in that role, you can still see him get 70% of the defensive snaps, which, hey, that's a huge outcome for it.
Yeah.
And where else are you going to get more out? Like, realistically, Trevor Penning, maybe, because maybe he ends up you're starting at right tackle. But if you're looking at a corner, you're not looking at much more than that.
No,
like,
not really.
Outside of that for sure starting right tackle, you're not getting it. So go ahead and upgrade and address a future need, because edge is one of those positions that you want to address before it's actually a need.
Yeah.
And even with Baron Browning in there, his role, it's not going to complicate things with Boye Mafe, because what Baron Browning's doing is completely different, because he's going to be the edge off ball hybrid type. Best way to think about it is kind of Micah Parsons esque.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be lining up off ball, then sliding down to edge, which, hey, that's just another element that you have when you add somebody like Boye Mafe. Now, to move on from this, I don't think Denver ends up moving up into the first round. No. I think at most, if they include Jerry Jeudy, it'll be a high second. But we'll see what happens there. Again, I'm not really sure that they trade Jerry Jeudy. I think they kind of want to see it maybe after this year. Kind of the thought that I've heard on this is that just capitalizing while his value is still pretty high before he has a chance to completely like wreck it potentially. But I mean, there's this issue of he can drastically help his stock or help his value as well.
Yeah, I want to grab this comment really fast because Jeff, and I'm not trying to blow you up here, Jeff. I appreciate this comment because I really did want to see Noah Fant stay in Denver, and Jeff comes in and says, "Watch Noah Fant light it up in Seattle." I would agree with you on that if Drew Lock wasn't the quarterback there. And yes, we need to start like the Paxton Lynch smear campaign that Mark Schlereth did. Like this should be the Drew Lock smear campaign where we have to throw at least one dig at him. No, I love Noah Fant. That was the one piece that I really didn't want to see go. I really wanted to see Noah Fant stick in this offense and have a quality quarterback. Not that Russell Wilson throws to the tight end very often, but I do think that there was a way for him to tear it up. I don't think it's going to happen because the quarterback play in the Pacific Northwest is just not good enough to do it. If he didn't do it with Drew Lock before in an offense that was friendly enough for Drew Lock, what do you think is going to happen when they go to an offense that wants to run the football a lot and doesn't target the tight end because they run, play action, deep shot, and it's always to Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Jeff, I love the comment, and I really do agree with you that if Noah Fant has quality quarterback play, he's going to light it up. It's just not going to be in Seattle, man. I'm sorry for that.
I mean, when they get Baker Mayfield, like
there you go,
better there.
Yep.
That's more joke than anything. Noah Fant can because he's got that athleticism to it. I hope his mind's in the right spot for it.
Yeah.
The biggest issue with Denver is that he just wasn't the blocking tight end that they really want. And Albert Okwuegbunam at least developed a little bit there.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just.
So I've got our. Sorry. Go ahead. Go pull it. You're good.
I wanted to grab this from Travis Weber here. I think it's kind of a bad idea to move Browning from his natural position. Understand why they want to with the kind of defense our new DC runs. This was an issue I had with Baron Browning coming out, was that he really didn't have the natural position.
Yeah.
That was Ohio State, they moved him to edge and off ball consistently. And Vic Fangio, I know that he's an issue and everything like that. But he wasn't wrong when he was talking about Baron Browning, and he said the fact that he played at multiple positions in college didn't help him transition to the NFL. It was an issue that they were trying to figure out, and then he got hurt. So he doesn't really have a natural position, and it's kind of a thing. And in a way, it's a good thing. In a way, it's a bad thing. You got to figure out where he works best at. I do agree, though, that I'm not for moving him away from off-ball linebacker. I thought he showed enough growth and development as each game went by to keep him there.
Yes.
I also have an issue of moving him to get Alex Singleton on the field, who's not good on defense. So I agree with the premise of what you're saying. It's just that he just doesn't really have a natural position is all.
So,
but it does make sense. It's
yes.
with the defense and everything. It does make sense.
That's the one thing, and I want to go back to Boye Mafe here, is because Boye Mafe at Minnesota doesn't necessarily have a natural position because they used him in a lot of different roles. Now, it was more edge than off ball, whereas Baron Browning at Ohio State was off ball more than edge. So you got to kind of find that niche role for that. But that's my concern. And Eric, you did a good job of explaining that to me. And I definitely agree with you. The more you think about it, it's like, yeah, okay, I can see where the fit is. At first, I was like, I'm not sure what you do with him in this defense. If you're going to keep, Bradley Chubb, and hopefully he turns into the edge rusher that you want. You got Randy Gregory on the big deal. Mafe just didn't make sense, but you did a good job explaining that. So I do want to give you props on that. So, but to move on here, there's another question here. Go ahead.
I just wanted to grab this from Kathy saying, I hope Fant does well in Seattle. I hope Fant does too. And I hope Locke does well. It's this thing of I know it comes off of it, but people need to understand that I don't root for people to fail. I'm paid to give my analysis and my thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's a difference. And I have to separate my personal feelings about it, because honestly, if I had my way, every single player who enters the NFL would succeed, because I want nothing but success for people. But it's just not realistic. So,
yeah. There's a point in being critical in your analysis and being a fan. And this is a pinned tweet that's been on my Twitter account for like 2 years now. And it went back to the beginning or actually it was like halfway through the last season, because I was highly critical of Drew Lock. Everybody knows that. If you watch the show, I'm not necessarily a big Drew Lock fan. However, I wanted him to succeed. That's my job. This is what we do here. We give you the deep dive analysis and give you guys our opinion. Like, that's what we do here. And my opinion, if I'm going to be candid with you and give you my opinions, whether it's right or it's wrong, it's my opinion, and that's what I'm going to state. Now, I do hope that Noah Fant does amazingly well in Seattle. I hope Drew Lock does amazingly well, and he becomes a great starting quarterback, because I thought he was a great starting quarterback when they drafted him in the second round back in 2019. I was there. I met him. It was like a starstruck moment for me to meet Drew Lock. It never panned out on the field, in my opinion. So sorry about that. Travis jumping in here.
You're welcome. I mean, yeah, and I kind of got that. I just wanted to address it because I've seen a lot of people talk about natural position with Baron Browning, and it's just not that it's inaccurate. It's just not the most what's the right word here. It can be a little bit misleading with it, with saying natural position with Baron Browning, and it's similar to another linebacker in this year's class that, hey, I have a scouting report on. You guys go check it out at milehighhuddle.com. Brandon Smith out of Penn State. Watching Brandon Smith, he's very similar to Baron Browning, and he's that guy of like, I don't know if he's really an edge. I don't know if he's really an off ball. Like, he's not really a tweener, but at the same time he is. And that's kind of just Baron Browning. Jay Cosette says, not knowing how Hamler's knee is going to hold up, we need Judy for speed. All comments and everything coming out of is that he's going to be ready before the season. Like, they're expecting to start practicing pretty early into training camp, and may not go in preseason, but he should be ready to go full go by regular season. Sounds like that some of the wording from last year with the injuries led people to believe that it was worse than it was.
Yeah.
That's just out of that.
Well, we had Graham Cohen and Dr. Graham Cohen, an orthopedic surgeon, right after KJ Hamler got injured, and he was like, there was speculation coming out that he not only tore his ACL but his LCL as well, and it's like, the LCL you're not really focused on as far as like the major concern. The ACL would be it, but if he didn't tear anything and it was a clean tear on the ACL, I mean, you can see him come back 6 to 8 months, so he could definitely be ready by the middle of the summer and be full go for training camp. Now, be cautious with that, but there is a lot of positivity coming out right now, because even at the throwing session, KJ Hamler was at the throwing session with Russell Wilson earlier this week. There's a lot of bad talk about Judy not being there, which whatever. Stop. It's an off-season throwing session. It's not like it's a mandatory thing. But KJ Hamler was there. He caught passes from Russell Wilson. He wasn't running, but he did throw a pass, and KJ actually jumped up and caught a ball, which is a good sign. He's at this point in his process, 4 months out, 5 months, something like that. From it was our beginning, end of September, early October, somewhere around end of September. So let's see, 5 months out, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm bad at 6 months. Yeah. So, I mean, he could potentially be ready to go, but to see him jump up and catch a football and then land on that bad knee with his first step, like that's a good sign. Now, I'm not too concerned about KJ. Now, Judy, on the other hand, I'm not sure what I think of Jerry Judy right now. I love Jerry Judy, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, the drop issues, I think there's attitude concerns there as well. Like it just doesn't seem to be. It's not the throwing session deal. It's the constantly clapping back on Twitter. It's starting to get annoying, because everyone's talking trash on him and stuff like that, and then he comes back and he claps back. Just keep your mouth shut and go to work.
It's not just that he claps back; it's how he clapped back.
Exactly.
Basically calling fans irrelevant, and that's just not the way you go. And I would not be shocked at all if the Broncos PR team reached out to him and be like, "Hey, yeah, you can't do that."
Yeah.
I wanted to. There's a couple comments here I wanted to grab, and this one is, since I just mentioned it. Right? Roy asked, "I may sound like a dummy, but what is a tweener?" Hey, you don't sound like a dummy. There's no stupid questions unless you're asking why Lance looks the way he is, because we just don't know. A tweener is a player that doesn't really fit at a position. It's typically related to size, but I think it goes beyond that. And you typically hear it with defensive ends and edges. I think a good example of that this year is Cameron Thomas out of San Diego State.
Yeah.
He doesn't exactly have the traits or the explosion or burst that you're looking for to be a full-time edge player, stand up, 7 technique, edge rusher, Bradley Chubb type mold. But at the same time, he doesn't have the size or the strength to really hold up as a 5 tech, 4-eye tech, and a 3-4 front. So it kind of puts you, even though it's kind of dying a little bit, it kind of limits him to basically being a base 4-3 defensive end that's working as a 6 technique out of a 3-point stance. Another version of tweeners is guys who aren't really safeties because they have the issues in coverage, but they're not quite big enough to hold up as a linebacker. So you kind of have the way that it's kind of going now is you're just calling them hybrids. Basically all hybrids are tweeners, really. Yep. Small difference there, but that's the simplest way. And then I wanted to give a shout out to Peter saying, "Hey everyone," and I just want to say, Peter, you're late, man. That's not acceptable.
Dude, we need your help. Scott's not here, man. Scott is not here to help us point out the stars, and that's your job, Peter. Gosh, dang it. I want to go back to tweener really fast before I grab this super chat from Shane. I got a great tweener for you, because he plays, it looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. Kingsley Enagbare is one. And then another one is DeMarvin Leal. DeMarvin Leal is really a tweener because he doesn't have the strength to play the inside. He has some burst and stuff like that to play on the edge, but where would you play him? Because he doesn't have the twitch, doesn't have the bend, he doesn't have anything else you look for as an elite edge defender. He doesn't have the strength to play as an elite edge defender or to play inside, but he has the size to do at least play on the edge. Like it's a weird one. That's a tweener in between players is the way you
in between position.
Yeah, in between position, yes.
Terry with a $2 out of Canada, not California, Lance, since I know you used to make that mistake all the time.
Yeah.
Should we really care who we get? We have a quarterback. Yeah, I mean, it's always about how you build the roster around the quarterback. Quarterback can do a lot, but you still need help around it. And Denver's in a pretty good position, so you still got to care for it. Mike Ronquillo says, George Payton has my respect for running the Denver Broncos organization as the GM. Go Broncos. Yeah, I mean, I have nothing but respect for George Payton and what he's done. I'm not going to lie. There's some things that I question for him, which, again, is something I get paid to do. It's literally my job is I can't sit there and just, rah-rah everything. And, I mean, there are always going to be questionable moves. Every GM, every coach, every player makes questionable decisions, questionable moves, things like that. Peter Johnson, any chance Judy gets traded during the draft by Peyton for a higher pick? Possible, and that's something that we were just talking about a little bit ago. I don't know if you were with us, Peter, when we were, but it's definitely something, and there's stuff to it. The Judy rumors, again, I'm not sure they really trade him. I think they may want to see what he does this year, but there's questions about his fit with Russell Wilson and the offense. Kathy Lund says you had to Google what a swing tackle was the other day. There was actually a term that Daniel Jeremiah used on his podcast with Bucky Brooks that I had never heard before, and it actually caught me off guard because it just makes total sense. And now I can't remember what the word was. When I first saw your comment, I knew what it was, but by the time I got to it, I just completely forgot.
All right, I got to grab this one from Shane really fast because he threw this question in and then came back with a super chat to make sure that we got to it. And thank you, Shane, for joining us, and thank you for your donation. We really appreciate you, man. Keep coming back. This is a new name for me, so we appreciate you, Shane. Hey, gents, I've been doing the mock draft simulators, and I often have Sam Howell or Carson Strong available at 64. Would we dare take a quarterback if someone drops? I don't think so, not at 64. Russell Wilson, like we just got done talking about a couple minutes ago, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 years is like the timeline for Russell Wilson in this town, in this city, as the potential as a starting quarterback for this Broncos team. I don't think a quarterback at 64 is in the cards. Even if you're only looking at Russell Wilson for 4 years, like that doesn't make sense to me. Now, if you want a developmental quarterback, a guy that can go and be a potential backup, a guy like Caleb Ellaby, who I know the Broncos are high on. Bailey Zappi or the EJ, the kid from Brown, Erick, EJ Perry.
EJ Perry.
Yep, EJ Perry. Like that's a guy late day 3 that you could potentially come in as a developmental quarterback. 64 though, I would really that would be a move that would catch a lot of negative flack from me.
That would be John Elway drafting Brock Osweiler after signing Peyton Manning.
Yes,
I did not like that move. Yes. I get it. Don't get me wrong. I get why he did it with the concerns about Peyton Manning's neck. I get it. But this would actually be worse if they took a quarterback at 64 because Peyton Manning, they at least signed with not giving up any picks. This, they had to trade picks. They had to trade players for. And then it would not sit well with me. I'm assuming we're going to be doing the live drafts, and I'd probably punch my computer screen. Like it would. It's not a move that I doubt Peyton makes it, and it's not a move he should make.
No, I'm with you on that. Go ahead.
Sparky says, I think it's good Judy does that. Everyone these days expect to speak on things they know nothing about and expect no response. I don't disagree. Right. My issue is that you can't go on Twitter and call fans irrelevant. Like that's the issue. There's a line with how you do it. Shelby Harris was great at pushing back. There was another player, Chris Harris, does a good job of pushing back. Justin Simmons, they do a good job of pushing back about what people are saying and everything. Jerry Judy called fans irrelevant, and that's the issue.
Yeah,
it's not something you can do. You're alienating fans as soon as you do that.
Yeah, there's a fine line between talking trash and actually being insulting, and I find that line sometimes on social media myself, and I apologize.
Oh, I cross that line all the time.
Yeah, like there's straight up like
I'm a bit of a hypocrite to talk about it, but
but you're also Erick Trickel at Mile High Huddle, not Jerry Judy making millions of dollars and have 100 million people following you or whatever. I wish I was making millions of dollars to do this because I would never have to go to work again. But like there's a difference between being an asshole and pardon my language, for being a jerk on social media as a guy like us, or being a jerk on social media as a guy with a public stature. And that's Kathy jumping in here. She says, but when you start calling names, we quit buying your jersey. And that's the big thing. When I start calling names, and every now and again, I actually ask the guy, are you really this dense, or is this a new thing for you? And that's a little bit insulting, and I apologized to him, and it was, I think he actually unfollowed me. So I don't remember who it was, but even something like that can lead to negative feedback for you on your social media. And as far as a guy that has a public following like a Jerry Judy, that's a big character flaw. It's a character concern, like for sure. Erick, I know, is one of the biggest character concerns that Erick can find, especially when scouting players, is searching their name on Twitter. Like if you find a player
fights on Twitter,
Yep.
I mean, with going off of what Lance says, is like, and this is something that I struggle with, and I made a tweet about it, is that at some point you just have to know to just let it go, walk away, and don't engage. You're a potential star receiver in the NFL. Like, I understand that the crap is bothering you, especially with it seeming like he was having a kid. Don't know for sure. He just tweeted out an emoji about it. That seems to be the connection. Plenty of people are hinting at it. Don't know for sure, but whatever the reason, I'm sure he has a good one. But it's just like, you got to hit that point of like, okay, like, I'm going to step away. Like, I'm not going to keep engaging. Yeah. Joey says, what would Judy be with in a draft trade value? From the rumors that are going around, I think they're asking for like a late first round pick value, which means that not a first round pick, but just enough of a value that equals about a first round pick, a late first round pick. Yeah. That seems to be what it is. He's still got a lot of value around it. I know that there's plenty of teams that are interested. I mean, it's a position that I know that Denver's been called about. So it's interesting, and I think that's one of the reasons why. And then real quick, I wanted to grab this from Travis saying, call me crazy, but wouldn't mind drafting the punter out of San Diego. Neither would I. I mean, that dude's got a ridiculous leg, and I think that it opens up the ability you can work with him as a kicker too. Yeah. He's somebody in Denver, he could be a weapon. So the issue is with Russell Wilson, hopefully you're not punting as much. So it's kind of, is it really valuable? Like, so that's
No. I have to gas you up on this because you downplayed that as much as you possibly could. This dude over here to my left-hand side, I swear to God, once a week in our group chat, in all caps, Matt Araiza needs to be drafted by the Broncos. Like, seriously, this dude loves Matt Araiza. Eric, don't deny it. Don't deny it, because I can start I can pull receipts if I have to and expose the hell out of this. Erick Trickel is a massive Matt Araiza fan, and he said, like, he's always about, like, you don't draft specialists, you don't draft guys specifically for special teams. Seriously, Matt Araiza is the guy for Erick Trickel, and I will expose you fully if I have to. Please don't make me do that.
Speaking of exposing, Big E kind of said this. There's a difference. Eric knows he's a jerk sometimes. Judy just needs to go to training.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I know I'm a jerk, and I know I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm very rough and gruff with my personality. There's other issues that play into that, and I don't need to go into that. But yeah, I know it, and it's things like everybody around me knows it, and it's stuff that I've been trying to work on. Because trust me, guys, like 4 or 5 years ago, I was like 100 times worse. Like, this is me toned down, and I'm still trying to tone it down. Like, I know it. I know I have issues with it, so.
Eric and I got into it a couple of different times. This is before I was at Mile High Huddle, just going back and forth. And yeah, there were times I've followed him forever. I sang all the praises. There were times where Eric and I went back and forth with each other. Shit, there's times now that we go back and forth with each other, even in our group chat. It's like, dude, stop. Just like, you're actually getting to cross lines. Now, that's part of the reason why I love working with Eric, is because we're not for everyone. Like, I know I'm not for everyone. I know that I'm going to say my opinion. I have a loud voice. I like the way it sounds. Okay. Like, I'm going to hear myself speak, and Eric is the same way. And if we get and cross some lines every now and again, so be it. We've done it enough on DVDD. And if you guys don't like it, well, sorry, we're going to continue to be the guy.
Peter Melton, I saw that you said that you and Travis shared stars. Thank you guys both for it. Hopefully these are the right
thanks guys.
He says there's certainly better wide receivers on the Broncos at the moment, but hope he'll play much better this season. Yeah, I mean, if Denver ends up keeping Judy, I hope he improves. I think that obviously there's obvious issues that he had with the Broncos the last couple of years, drops, then last year injuries, and then 5,672 of those fakes that he ran because Pat Shurmur couldn't figure out how to use them right. Like, there's plenty of issues there, and I think that's one reason why his value to other teams is still kind of high too. Of that, they can recognize the bad situation. But there are issues with Jerry Jeudy's side. And one of my biggest issue isn't just his fit with the passing offense, because daggers and in routes are one of his best. And Russell Wilson doesn't really care for the middle of the field that much. He doesn't block. He doesn't give any effort as a blocking. And more blocking from wide receivers has become a do it or you're not me. You're not for me kind of thing. And it's really reflecting in my draft analysis and everything like that, and grades and stuff. And that's not Jerry Jeudy. It was an issue I had with him coming out of college too. just smacked my mic. Yeah, it's hopefully he plays better if he's there. Hopefully he gets that desire and that effort down. But I think that's part of the reason why he's being shopped a little bit is that they can see it too. Like he doesn't give effort for it, and the Packers, Nathaniel Hackett, like they value blocking from the receiver position. And then Travis Weber, great show tonight, guys. Thought about making the drive to Vegas during the draft festivities, but saving my vacation, I have to go to my nephew's graduation in Idaho. He is already enlisted in the Marines. Hey, thank you to your nephew.
Yes.
Appreciate that. He's going to be going to boot camp after graduation. Hey, that's great. It's family's more important. Like I know my high huddle is that we're just a big giant family from all over the world, but blood family is more important for it. And not being able to make it to the draft, I'm not going to be able to make it this year. Lance isn't going to be able to make it. I'm not sure about Chad and Zach, but it doesn't sound like most of us are going to be able to make it. Hopefully next time we ever do a Mile High Huddle meet and greet, hopefully we'll be able to meet you there, though, because your support has just consistently been awesome.
Yeah. Next year, though, I just saw the tweet drop the other day, Kansas City. We could go rep some Broncos country in Kansas City for the draft, and I would not mind that. I wanted to go to Vegas this year, but I get married a month later, and I already talked to my wife about that.
No one cares about that.
Yeah, she just seems to think otherwise, and unfortunately, she doesn't think that spending as much money as it's going to take to get to Las Vegas and then spend 3 days there and then get back is actually worth it a month before we get married. So I kind of had to pull out of this year's draft.
You just got to explain to her the priorities.
The priorities have always been clear. So it's actually quite funny, guys. A quick story here. Samantha and I first met 2 weeks before Eric and I started this podcast. And when I told her that I was, starting a podcast and what I did, I'm working for Mile High Huddle and everything. She's like, oh, that sounds great. Now she hates Fridays because I'm gone for an hour. Like seriously, she's like, I hate Fridays. I come home from work and you're gone for an hour because you have to do your stupid damn podcast. I'm like, hey, it's not stupid. All right. It's not stupid. This is what I love to do. And you knew what you were getting into when you first decided that you were going to date me. And then after I proposed and you said, yes, you're going to marry me. You knew that this was an everyday occurrence. Damn it. I got a couple of things I want to grab here really fast. Peter says, these are my stars to you from earlier. Michael Ronquillo jumping in saying, great show tonight from Lance and Eric on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Let's ride. Go Broncos. Peter actually had a good question here. And I want to grab this really fast. With all the people signing free agency, what are the positions of need now? He says safety, tight end, interior defensive lineman, cornerback, offensive lineman, or right tackle. Still right tackle to me. Interior defensive line is a big concern as well. They need some more depth there. You've got the slot cornerback. Well, I guess not slot cornerback, but slot defensive back. I will say if you can find a safety that can drop down into the nickel, maybe a guy like JoJo Doman in the fourth round. That's a guy that I'm kind of intrigued by. Interior defensive lineman for sure. And then interior offensive lineman, I talked about Cole Strange a little bit. So, Peter, I know you came in late. Go back and check out the rest of the show where we kind of expanded on some of that as well. And then our pal jumped in twice now, and he says something along the lines of, if we trade Jerry Jeudy to Green Bay for one of the first-round picks, for one of the first-round picks, should we turn around and get Christian Watson to fill his spot and also a punt returner too? Now, Eric, this is something I kind of have an issue with just because of the build of Christian Watson, but I want your expertise on him because I haven't gotten to the tape of him. Is Christian Watson a fit if they get rid of Jerry Jeudy, or are they looking at KJ Hamler there instead?
Oh, I mean, it's tough because Christian Watson's built and his skill set's better on the outside as a boundary receiver where they have Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton already. I'd be looking at somebody a little bit different to bring a more complementary piece that can work on the outside. But at the same time, Watson is so fast and he's quite talented as a player. There's a reason he's being talked about as a late first-round pick now.
Really? I had not seen that yet. That's intriguing.
I think Daniel Jeremiah was just mentioned that other thing.
Okay.
Which Trayvon Walker getting love for the first overall pick is pretty awesome too. Pardon the word slip up there. So it's tough. I think I kind of like someone like Jalen Tolbert a little bit later, a little bit more. Calvin Austin, Velus Jones Jr. Like those are the kinds of guys I'd be looking a little bit. But I love Christian Watson. I really liked his game going back to last year. I wanted to get this.
Roy, we'll come back to this. I do want one more name in the wide receiver conversation here. The kid from Western Michigan, Sky Moore.
I love Sky Moore.
If the Broncos trade Jerry Jeudy, Sky Moore is the dude. Like, go and get him at 64. Like, if he's there at 64, you might need to trade up to go get him. Like, Sky Moore is the guy in this class.
I'm half tempted to go find my Elijah Moore scouting report from last year and basically copy paste it for Sky Moore, because those guys, there's some differences, but they're pretty well identical.
They really are.
And I loved Elijah Moore last year. Before we get out of here, though, I got to point this out. Roy Osborne says, "You're Whip Lance." Well, he is.
Yeah.
Doesn't that come with marriage? Isn't that synonymous with it?
Yeah.
And then this is actually a good idea. They got married before the draft and then just honeymooned in Vegas.
That is actually the better idea, and I actually proposed that to Samantha. I really did. So we chose our date. It's a terrible date, by the way. We messed up because we weren't paying attention to what the holidays were. We get married May 28th, by the way, which is Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, because we're terrible people and we actually did that by accident. So I did propose to Samantha. I was like, we could do our honeymoon early. We could go to Vegas at the end of April. And she's like, why? What? Like, this sounds like fun. I'd be willing to go. I was like, yeah. And while we're there, I could go work at the NFL draft. And she's like, absolutely mother bleeping not. We're not doing that.
Hey, you always can just honeymoon in Alaska.
Hey,
I know some
there's
places.
An idea. There's an idea. Dip netting starts in June too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, we need to think about that one. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. All right, let's run through this one more time.
Get you down to Homer for some. Malcolm's not in here, but I can get you down to Homer. Hippie town.
Yeah.
In Alaska, and possibly go out halibut fishing.
There we go. That's another one. And
then real quick. Oh, sorry. I wanted to grab this one real quick because Black Knight posted it earlier. It says, "What's the talk of town on Chubb? Does the team like him, or are they going to try and flip him for picks?" They like him. They want to see what he can do with the full off season. They like his attitude. They like his work ethic. They like his drive. They're excited for him. They love the fact that this is his first real full off season without dealing with medical stuff. So they have a lot of hope for him. And from what I understand was keeping the system similar, Chubb actually played a factor in the desire from Peyton for wanting that, is keeping the defenses similar. It was a lot more than that, but it was just a small factor of it.
Well, and they have the opportunity. Let's see. They already have the 5th year option on him, so he's going to be around for next year. And they want to see what happens with a good bill of health. Like he's been injured a lot here lately. He had the torn ACL in his second season. Last year he missed the majority of the year with bone spurs. Yep, he had seriousness on both ankle surgeries on both ankles. I read a comment here. Anyways, surgeries on both ankles to remove bone spurs. So they like Bradley Chubb. They just want to see what's going to happen when he's healthy, because that rookie season, he was amazing. It took him a minute to get going, but he had 12 sacks in essentially 14 games and damn near broke the rookie sack record. So if they can get that high end of the high end production that Chubb had his rookie season in going into year 5, like there's a possibility here that Chubb could get extended sooner rather than later. Like even mid-season, they could extend him and see if they can't keep him around for the long haul. So, but with that, guys, we got like 3 minutes here before we have to be out of here. We're on the hard out for the Facebook page. So I'm going to take it over from here. And thank you all for joining us on Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast, guys. Follow us on Twitter by finding me at Sanderson MHH, and for Erick at Erick Trickel. Also, guys, again, at Mile High Huddle, where you guys can find breaking news and analysis on your Denver Broncos, including all of our Finding Broncos pieces. Erick's got over 100 scouting reports, and I only have 5 right now. I just haven't had time to get any more, but those will be coming live here soon in the next couple of days. And I will get up to 50 done by the draft. So hopefully I can get some more of those done this weekend. But anyways, at Mile High Huddle, all of your breaking news and analysis, all of your Broncos film breakdowns, opinion articles, draft content, all that at Mile High Huddle. Folks, if you're financially able to do so, head on over to huddleuppod.com. That's the merch tent, guys. As a concert junkie, it's the merch tent. So that's where you get yourself a hat, you get yourself a t-shirt, you get yourself a coffee cup, a face mask, a hoodie. There's something for the guys, something for the gals, something for every show. All shows across the Huddle Up Podcast Network. That's where you guys are going to get it. If you guys aren't financially able to do so, subscribe, please. Wherever you guys are watching this, it's on YouTube, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, on podcast form at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker. It doesn't matter. If you guys are listening to any of the Huddle Up podcast content, subscribe to Mile High Huddle. If you guys like it, click the like button. That's easy. It's a great way to help the show. But if you love it, if you truly love it, get it in front of as many Broncos fans as possible by clicking the share button. That's a great way to support the show, because without your guys' support, we couldn't do what we do best, which is cover your Denver Broncos. Now, with that, Eric, quickly, any last words?
I mean, we gotta get out here. Friday nights always goes by so fast. Always enjoy talking about it. Hopefully, before too long, we have a morning show for some of you guys that are overseas and everything. But thank you guys for the wonderful chat, and I mean, a lot of great questions for it. Some great questions we weren't able to get to, unfortunately. But it's a great time of year, and we're just over a month until the draft, and I'm getting more and more excited. Even though you can't tell.
Yeah, me too. I'm super pumped. Eric's getting more gray hair as we speak. No, it's great to be able to do this stuff, guys. If we didn't get your comment, if you guys had stars on Facebook, if we didn't get to that, we apologize deeply. We'll make sure that we find out who that was. I'll go back and double check everything. And we'll make sure that we thank you guys properly next week. But with that, guys, we have to say thank you and goodbye. You all stay safe and take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. For Erick Trickel, I am Lance Sanderson. You guys, we will see you guys same time, same place next week. And as always, go Broncos.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.